What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour, brought to you by our friends up at Toyota of Warren. DJ Yoakley with you on this 60 minute, not 60 seconds. Sometimes I wish it was 60 seconds, and I'm sure sometimes you do as well. 60-minute love letter to local sports that we call the Ysn Power Hour. So happy that you're able to join us today. We've got a great show for you. First half of the show, we are going to talk about a word that a lot of people get kind of confused on what it really is and what it really means to put together a protest. And I'm not talking about like the picket signs or anything like that. I'm talking about a word that we've become quite familiar with this summer. In the word is protest, and what it means and when it should be used, and understanding a little bit more of why, right? And we're going to talk again. We're going to talk both sides of the coin here, and I hope I can represent both sides evenly. And you can make a decision on your own merit. I've made my decision, especially yesterday. I've made my decision pretty cut and dried and crystal clear. And then the second half of the show, we are going to talk to one of my best friends, one of the guys that I trust most in this world. A guy that means a lot to me, and a guy that I am so proud of, who is out there blazing his own trail. Richie Giuliano will join the show in a pre-taped interview that we had earlier today. So excited to talk to Richie, and it was so good to hear his voice and to hear the enthusiasm that he still has, because the reality is, quite honestly, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit leading up to the interview, is that the expectations that we set out for ourselves as sports broadcasters and things of that nature, they can be lofty, right? Everybody graduates high school thinking that they're going to be a D1 baseball, softball, whatever sport it is, player. And if you don't get that dream, you feel like you fell short a little bit. And it's the same thing in the real world. When you graduate college, you feel like every broadcaster, every sportscaster is going to be on, ESPN or Fox and CNN and all that good stuff. And the reality of it is it's not made for everybody. And, it's a tough industry. It is, because there is a ton of rejection. So it's so good to see and hear about success stories of people who, and he's going to tell you, and not to give anything away, but he's going to tell you about the rejections that he faced, and he just plowed through them until he finally got an opportunity. The door was cracked and he kicked it down. And, that doesn't mean that he's going to stay there forever, for better, for worse. He'll talk about his plans as he moves forward. So looking forward to putting that down for you and having everybody get reacquainted with one of the area's best ever broadcasters, as far as I'm concerned, the legendary Richie Giuliano. But first, as we always talk about the first part of the show, we're going to talk about protests, and this isn't the protest again. This isn't the ones that you're standing up and on the picket line and things like that. There's a time and place for those. These are, especially in diamond sports, a protest has become a natural part of tournaments, and I'm trying to understand why. And especially this year, and especially the last week or so, when it comes to the different tournaments around here. And I did a little deep dive on this. It's not just here, folks. It's not just in Northeast Ohio. This is an uptick everywhere. And what I'm going to explain is there is a time and there is a place for protesting a game, a call, whatever it may be, right? When you were done wrongly, and everybody seemingly nowadays feels like the decks are stacked against them, and I can tell you and promise you that they're not. Sometimes you get a raw deal. It happens. It's sports. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes, not all the time. I feel like some teams, some coaches, some fans, some parents, some players come in with this chip on their shoulder that the world's against them, that the umpires are against them, that the venue's against them, that just because they're playing in a certain city, a certain location, and let's say that you're coming in from out of town and you're playing the hometown team, that those umpires are going to lean towards the hometown team. And it's simply just not the case. And what I've discovered is that it's almost like some coaches keep that protest card like an ace up their sleeve, right? And instead of using it when it's time to use it, when it's the right time, in all theories, is as immediately as you can, they hold it until they feel like, okay, we're not going to win, or we're not in contention anymore, and they pull it out and it's too late. And then they try to go back and it's too late. And then they get upset because they feel like they're cheated, when in all reality, if you felt like you were cheated, you have a conversation with the umpire or whatever authority is there, a referee, an official, a district, whatever, the tournament manager, whatever it is, and you get it hashed out right as it happens. And we've seen this being done successfully, and we've seen this being done well after the fact. A protest should not be something that you use as a crutch in case your team is losing or is about to lose. It should be done no matter who's winning on the scoreboard. If your team's up by 15 and something happens, that's when you use a protest. Because it's not about winning and losing at that point. It's about what's right and wrong and correcting a mistake. A protest doesn't necessarily guarantee you a victory, because your appeal or your protest can be denied, as we've seen over the last week. But some coaches are using this as almost a weapon. And fans are using this as a weapon. And it's being used as a crutch where, listen, if this pitcher or this player is better than us and we feel like we're in a tough situation, we're going to use this. And a lot of times it backfires. And a lot of times it's karma. And if you're sitting there and you're, again, feeling like this is being thrown in your direction, I'm sorry, it's not. This is more of a blanket statement, is that we're seeing protests being used as a weapon in sports as part of the game, where this is not this should be the exception to the rule, not the rule itself. And I think the bigger part of this that is getting lost in the shuffle is what it does to the kids and what it teaches the athletes, the student athletes, or the athletes themselves that are not affiliated with any academics in that particular setting. What is that teaching? And here's the other kicker that people don't want to talk about. What is it teaching the parents? Parents are already tough. They're tough to deal with. They are. Because as a parent of an athlete, and potentially two, you sit there and you go, okay, well, I invested this much time and resources, and I want my kid to win every championship of every game, of every season, of every tournament. You feel like you're owed that. Breaking news, you're not. The best thing about sports is not the trophies that you're going to bring home. The best thing about sports is it teaches you the adversity of winning and losing. And you're probably sitting there going, adversity and winning. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's adversity in winning, because you got to handle yourself a certain way. The same way that when you fail, when you lose, when you come up short, you handle yourself in a certain way as well. And we've lost sight of all of that. We've lost sight of what youth sports is all about. Because now it all comes down to winning and losing, not learning and growing, winning and losing. There's a sign outside of the district tournament that says and reads, no one is being handed out scholarships during this 10U, 12U baseball or softball game. And I've seen it on the internet, and I've seen it in person. And I think parents, as important as that game feels, and you want your son or daughter to win, you want to be able to post it on your Instagram, your Facebook, good for you. Congratulations. That is going to be an awesome moment. And some people get it more often than others. But what is borderline shameful is that when you don't get it, the excuses, the reasons, it's not the umpires. I promise you, these guys aren't being paid off. They're not being paid at all in many cases, especially in Little League. They just don't care that much who wins or loses that game. There's no bookie in the parking lot asking if the red team's going to beat the orange team. Promise. Promise. But I've seen such behavior from parents and coaches and you know what? What's crazy about this when I dove into this is I've yet to discover the athlete being the reason for the protests. What I've seen personally, and somebody can call me out here and I'd be happy to address it and to bring it up and to say maybe I was wrong, because I'm wrong too sometimes. But the reality is, during a protest or during those times that you're looking to correct the mistake, the only person you're hurting is those kids. We had a protest last night during a 10U softball game that happened. It occurred at 5:59 when the national anthem was already performed. The intros were already done. And then there was a protest because there was the mound, or I'm sorry, not the mound, the rubber, pitching rubber was too far from the plate. So 25 minutes later, after the rubber was corrected to no fault of one team or the other, then it was a protest of not only that, but also the previous games, as I understand it. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong in that situation. A coach has to do what a coach has to do. But I look to my left and I look to my right. And while everybody was kind of up in the air and already irritable because this was happening, you know what I noticed? Was the young ladies that were actually going to partake in that game just wanted to play the game. They were cheering, they were chanting, they were singing, they were doing whatever they needed to do to stay hyped. Somewhere along the line during these protests and trying to win these championships, whether it's travel softball or AAU basketball or travel baseball or whatever it is, right? The competition that we bring from far away back home into our communities, we've lost sight of what's important, and that is the kids. That's the game. That's the experiences that we're learning. I'm nobody, but I can tell you that the reason I loved sports and fell in love with the sports in the first place was because it was a challenge. I was never on the best team. Never, I should say very, very rarely was I on the best team, right? Because we had a draft system and all that stuff in it, and there's a lot that goes into it. But now some groups have become so accustomed to winning that when they lose, this is impossible. This isn't right. Something went wrong here, and it can't be us because we're winners. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm okay with losing because I'm a competitor. It's not what I teach my kids. But listen, you got to learn from that loss. Learn something about yourself. Learn something about your teammate. Learn something about your community. Learn something about your coach. Learn something about your team. Learn something. Take something away that makes you better the next time you go out, whether it's the next day, the next week, the next year, whatever it may be. And if you got screwed, then find out where it was and then protest that. But you can't protest a loss because you lost. Can't protest because, well, they got a good pitcher going. So we got to figure out how we can get a leg up. I get strategy. I get competitive balance. I get trying to get a leg up and playing mind games and one-upsmanship. But at some point, you got to get sportsmanship in there too. You have to understand that when you lose a protest, there's a lot of egg on that face. Is it worth the while? Is it worth looking like you do? Is it worth that valuable lesson that you taught during that particular moment? That's what you have to wonder. That's what you have to weigh and risk and reward right there, right? And I'm not saying it's wrong in every aspect to protest. What I'm saying is this is almost eye-rolling ridiculous how many protests we're seeing nowadays in sports, specifically in sports. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to the fans. Listen, parents don't want to be out there for 3.5 hours watching a baseball game. Newsflash. Whether it's their kid or otherwise. Umpires don't want to be doing that. Managers shouldn't want to be doing that. Kids don't want to be doing that because these games that are 7 innings are now longer than major league games. They're longer than MILB games. And while I'm a fan of the pitch clock, I do not want to see the pitch clock implemented in high school or Little League. Can you imagine? It's just one of those things. Like we saw a protest that was trying to be pushed because this team didn't have enough players the entire time. Why didn't you say that a week ago? You waited until your team started losing or push came to shove and victory was almost unreachable and unattainable to make that point, to validate that. You're just grasping at straws. We saw another protest because, a kid was wearing a jersey that wasn't his, but it was the same as the team that he was with, but he was legitimized. Wait a minute, what? What? Because he's not wearing his jersey? Maybe it was dirty. Maybe he got ripped. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's at that point where you just go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm holier than thou. I'm not that guy. But it's tough to swallow sometimes. It's tough enough to sit and watch adults fight back and forth sometimes about something that's maybe it is super important to them. Maybe it's the greatest accomplishment of their life. But maybe it's just a fleeting moment. Maybe just let the kids do what they do. Because very rarely do you see the kids get so worked up that they throw something after the game. And if they do, there's a teachable moment for a coach or a parent. That's not how we do things. But when you see a coach or a parent do it, it's eye-opening. It's incredible. And you just shake your head and you wonder, wow, is that what's being taught to my son or daughter? Because I know if my son or daughter threw something after or during a game, threw their helmet, if the coach doesn't handle it, mom and dad will. And there's a lot of people that have that same feeling that I know, that have seen things, that have done things that, okay, I'm going to let the coach handle it. But if they don't, after the game, and I don't want to sit there and say that all parents of athletes are bad or all coaches of athletes are bad, because there's a lot of great influential people out there, and we've notoriously highlighted them on this show. And the majority, we get on the show and we talk about why it's so important to be an influence, a positive role model for kids and for athletes and for students and the whole gamut. But folks, you see it as much as I do. And it's tough. And there's a lot of people that just sit and sweep it under the rug and say, well, at the very least, we might win this game if we protest it. Okay, what happens if you lose? What happens if what you're protesting? What happens if you're wrong? Well, if we're wrong, we lose anyway. So who cares? Just play the game. Play the game. If you lose, tip your cap. That's what happens. Get better. If you win, tip your cap. Get better. It's one of those things where we've lost our sense, and I'd love to blame it on COVID. I'd love to figure out what we can blame it on, but I think we've just grown so accustomed to things that we quote unquote deserve that we've lost our sense of control. And my kid doesn't deserve to lose. No, they don't deserve to lose. So tell them to get better. Tell your coaches to get better. Tell your parents to get better. Tell, these districts are and these I shouldn't say district, these tournaments are always making themselves trying to get better. But the reality is, and you can talk to Chet Cooper, I bet you he would be on my side in a heartbeat. It's tough to find volunteers that want to put up with the crap all the time. They're going to put up with crap some of the time. That's just part of the job. Being an umpire is the same as being a politician. You're always going to be wrong 50% of the time. They learn to accept that. But when you're wrong, like 90, 100% of the time, and you can never please anybody, let me tell you something, folks. It is tough. It is tough. It's tough to be in that position and to not have anything to come out of it. There was an umpire in the last week. I'm not going to date it. I'm not going to say who it is. He's been doing this for 3 decades. And I saw this gentleman say, this is it for me. We've asked this question before. If that's the case, and the people that give back to the game, the officials, if we run them out of the game, I got bad news for coaches, for parents, for tournaments, for players. Like, we're not playing. If you don't have officials, you can't play the game. If you don't have umpires, you can't play the game. And I'm not sticking up for officials. The human element is these people, these men, these women, these boys, these girls. And yes, there are boys and girls that have to officiate, not because they want to at that age, because they have to. I'm sure every young umpire, young official would love to get more reps at a younger age. And if they want to make a career out of it, fantastic. But they're being rushed almost. I don't want to say all cases, but many cases, they're being rushed into situations where, and I've lived this, at 14 years old, there's an adult yelling at you and telling you you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, well, here's the mask. Here's the chest protector, the knee guards, whatever. Go ahead. You volunteer your time. That's just where it's at. But we're going to beat up on officials. We're going to beat up on these tournament directors, these district managers, these, to the point where we're calling national tournaments to get the answer. It's turned into litigation where if you don't get the answer you're looking for, you just keep calling people till you find someone that agrees with you, even if they're not the person that makes the decision. It's silly. It really is. It's silly. That's the only word for it. I've thought about immature. I've thought about embarrassing. I've thought none of those words really, they're probably part of it, but silly is the word. You're silly when you do that. If you're just using a protest to help your team win, then how good is your team? That's it. That's the question you should ask yourself. And I think there's a lot of coaches that sit there and go, okay, Sometimes a coach is like a politician, and they'll tell you that because you got to pick and choose the hill that you want to die on, right? You can't argue every call because there's something that happens every single play that an official doesn't see or doesn't call because we'd be there for 10 hours. So you got to pick and choose as a coach. You have to pick and choose the moments that you try to make an impact. You have to pick and choose just as a parent. Think about all the things that you just go, oh man, do I really want to expend my energy on something like this? Or do you just let it slide and then hopefully it doesn't snowball into something, even worse? Just because your kid, ate sugar after 9 o'clock doesn't mean he's going to be a mass murderer. Like you just hope that's going to play, right? You hope that doesn't take effect. You got to pick the hill that you want to die on sometimes. And unfortunately, we've seen the frustration of umpires and officials over the last, we've been around for 7 years now, and it hasn't gotten better. I can tell you that. It hasn't gotten better. But we have to. I'm part of it, right? We have to get better. Using a protest is not a way. It's not a weapon of mass destruction. It's not something that we should have in our back pocket. If you feel slighted, if you know the rules were broken, if you know that something isn't right, use it then and there. Don't wait until you fall behind. And just in case, this isn't a savior tool. A protest is something to legitimize the game, right? It shouldn't be an escape plan. It's something that should be used to make sure the game is played the way the rules dictate. And if you're protesting something that the rules dictate that the officials got it wrong, or another team got it wrong, or was trying to get a manipulative advantage, then so be it. And it might just be an absolute, shooting star that somebody wished for 30 protests this week. But here we are. And some of them were just dead silly. Dead silly. And I know there's a lot of people that are probably thinking, well, who is this guy? Who is this guy to be? But the reality is I'm asking the same question. Who's this guy? Who's this gal to be cheating the game, cheating their kids, cheating their parents, cheating just to try to get an advantage one way or the other? That's where it is. And I guess if you can look yourself in the mirror, I can too. So that is what I got to say about protests. It's time to take a break and to talk to Richie Giuliano when we get back. Richie's got a lot to say and a lot of good stuff to say. And will we see the return of RJ, the return of Richie Giuliano into the Valley? We're going to find out right after this on the Ysn Power Hour, brought to you by these great sponsors.
We believe expectations are made to be exceeded. At the new Toyota of Warren, it's about more than just getting a great deal. It's about service you can count on and a friendship you can trust. Year after year, we've done what we do best. We've gone the extra mile so you could too. Because we know it's just not about buying a new car. It's the start of a new adventure. Toyota of Warren, driven by you.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we offer a worry-free experience for all our customers. From sales to financing and even service, we'll help build your perfect vehicle
and lock in your trade value
while your vehicle is being built.
No worries.
We guarantee financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history.
No worries. And when your vehicle needs service,
our award-winning team will get you back on the road.
No worries.
That's what going the extra mile means. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Change. This one word can make you break out in a cold sweat. But with change comes wisdom, experience, and understanding. At Myers Family Insurance, we can help make changes in Medicare, insurance, and retirement a positive experience for you and your family. We've gone through changes, like our new office and new faces to help our family of clients too.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance.
Check us out online at MyersFamilyINS.com
or find us on Facebook.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa.
And I'm Kelsey Clem from K-Squared Marketing.
Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships.
We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team.
Your goals, our game plan.
Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
All right, everybody, welcome back into this awesome edition, this Wednesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour, brought to you by our friends over at Toyota of Warren. DJ with you again for the second half of the show. And as I promised you, a very special guest coming in, one of the guys that has helped build YSN from the ground up and continues to root for us and is just embedded in the fabric of this company, and a guy that we are incredibly proud of, a young man who continues to break through the glass ceilings time and time again. And I got to say, more than any question that I've received this summer, I've received, what is going on with Richie Giuliano? So ladies and gentlemen, straight from the horse's mouth, let's talk to him. The OG of YSN, Mr. Richie Giuliano. What's up there, Tennessee Pete?
What's going on? It's glad to be back here on YSN. It's great to talk to you, of course, DJ, and I'm excited to hop back on the Power Hour, something that we created actually back in that studio a couple years back, and then during my 6 months after college, we were on it every day. So I'm glad to be back on the show.
We're happy to see your smiling face as always, my friend. And you got a lot to smile about. So, what, about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, you made the announcement. We talked about it here on this show about you leaving for Tennessee, leaving your beautiful hometown of Canfield, Ohio. You're representing Youngstown so very well, and you're heading down to Tennessee to be the AA announcer and so much more that we found out with the Tennessee Smokies. Talk to me about, now you can be honest, right? Now you can open up. You wanted to be tough guy before, no fear, no anything. What was the transition like for you and the drive down? I'm sure that there was so many feelings and emotions all over the place.
Yeah, it was different for sure. This was the first time that I left the nest. I lived at Youngstown State when I went there my freshman year, but this was the first time that I moved out and I went to a different state on my own. I've got a roommate who I work with down here, but it was a tough drive because we just booked our apartment. We got everything set up. My parents came down with me in a separate car, and it was a 7.5, 8-hour drive down to East Tennessee here in Knoxville, which is where the Smokies play. And there were a lot of emotions going through my head because this was the true first time that I was leaving Canfield, Ohio to pursue my dream and become a sports broadcaster. So it was a lot of fun. There was a lot going through my head, a lot of excitement more than nervousness. I was really excited for this opportunity, and I'm glad I'm here right now. It's been a great journey.
Well, we understand that you've been busting your tail down there as you do all the time. One of the hardest working dudes that I know. The last roommate, it's funny you mentioned your roommate. The last roommate you had, you put through a table. I'm hoping you guys have had a better relationship than that.
Yeah, we get along great. His name is Rory Tedemer. You can find him on social media. He does some work with the Smokies as well. And, he's my age, so we get to do a lot of different things outside of just working here. There's a lot of attractions in this area. Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg are two big tourist destinations. So we hang out there, go downtown and do a lot of different stuff. But yeah, I haven't put them through a table just yet.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad. And I don't know, maybe we'll stream that fight if it ever happens, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. So let's talk your daily responsibilities. You kind of outlined it on the last show that you were on, but I want to let people know, like, when they're looking to be a sports broadcaster and make a profession out of this, there is more than just showing up and going on air. There's a lot more than meets the eye or meets the ear, right?
Absolutely. It's a long day. I'm not going to lie to you. We usually start around 10, 11 o'clock every morning. We start with stat packs, so we outline all the stats that you could think of. Some of the most ridiculous stats, like what this guy's batting with runners in scoring position, what he's doing with 2 outs. That we have a booklet that we print out every day for both announcers. We print out for the press box and any media or staff that wants to see it. So we usually print out about 15 of those. Then we move on to our game notes. It's a 13-page packet that details our players in depth. Storylines are in there, stats are in there, and recent trends of what the players and the team have been doing. So that takes about an hour, hour and a half every day, and then we print that out. We move on to the rosters. If there's any lineup changes or roster changes, we do that. And then we fill out a media lineup every day. That goes down to both clubhouses. It also stays up here in the press box for all the public address announcers, broadcasters, and any media that's up here. So we do that, and then we do a thing called the Daily Smoky, which is our daily program for the day. We print about 100 of those for our season ticket holders, and that's just a small little pamphlet with the rosters. We do the starting pitching matchup on there, and then some interesting facts, maybe some crazy stats that we found about this series or about a particular player. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's about 7 or 8 tasks that are done before the game starts, and we try and get everything done around 5:30, 6 o'clock. So then we have an hour to settle in, an hour to eat, and then prepare for the game. So the majority of my work is media relations with the press box and making sure that both dugouts are happy. And then my secondary job is calling the game on air.
So I love, number one, being able to listen to your calls, because you, as always, do such a great job of promoting it on your Twitter. Make sure that you plug that, because we want people to be able to follow you, because quite frankly, I'm tired of them hitting me up on private messages asking how Richie's doing. But honestly, it's one of those things, Richie, it's so cool to be able to see you call those games. And we're so used to it because you called probably the better part, if not more than 1,000 games here on YSN. When you think about the transition, what has been the biggest transition for you from being an amateur broadcaster and sportscaster to being a professional broadcaster and sportscaster?
That's a good question. I guess, for me, I've tried to stay to my roots. A lot of the things that I've learned during my time when I was broadcasting Youngstown State baseball and then the Mahoning Valley Scrappers, I've tried to transition that here to the AA ranks and, try and do a lot of the same things that I've been doing, because, that's why I really enjoyed my opportunity with Youngstown State and with the Scrappers, is because it allowed me to make mistakes at that level so that I learned from it and that I could use that here when I got to AA action. So, it's a lot of the stuff that I've been working on when I was at Youngstown and with the Scrappers. So I think that I've done a nice job here with our on-air talent. We've had a great connection. My boss is Mick Gillespie. He's been doing this since 2007. He was the Southern League Broadcaster of the Year back in 2010. So he's a well-known name around these parts in the Southern League and all across minor league baseball. And, him and I have a great connection. And that's one thing that has kind of been the difference for me, is working with a partner. Because this, when I did games with Youngstown State and when I did games with Mahoning Valley, I had Anthony Romo, who was with me for a small portion of the games. But for the majority of the time, I was by myself. So working with a partner is a little bit different. I guess that was the big transition from going from Youngstown here to Tennessee.
I guess in any sport, the transition is working with others, right? You're a competitor at your very core. You always have been, always outworking the people that are around you. But when you're in that game, whether it's as a competitor, as an athlete, or whether you are on the air, you've got to be able to work with that teammate. And I guess most people don't understand the chemistry that goes into that. They expect you to go into the booth and know exactly what that person's going to say and be able to fill in the dead air, so to speak. What kind of learning curve was it for you, and how did you go about making yourself better and kind of learning on the fly?
Yeah, the big adjustment for me was that, hey, the first couple of innings, I'm not the play-by-play guy. I'm the color guy. I'm just supposed to fill in here and there. And that was a big adjustment for me, because I'm used to blabbering through 9 innings a night where I'm like talking to myself and, with sitting with him, and he's such a glorified name around these parts. I just sat back. I learned a lot from him, the good and the bad. That's what he told me. Hey, you're going to learn a lot from me both in a positive note and then a negative note. There's things that I do that, still aren't good. And I took away from that. So building that relationship with him lasted a week or two until we started to really find a good rhythm. So when I knew when to talk, when not to talk, of course, the first couple weeks we were working together, we kind of stumbled over one another. But once we got settled in, we've become a pretty good team. I think we've got one of the best broadcasts in this Southern League and all of minor league baseball. And I'm proud to say that.
And it doesn't surprise anybody here, dude, that you guys are amongst the best, if not the best in the league. With as hard as you work, I'm sure he works just as hard to keep up with you sometimes. So if anybody follows you on Twitter, they're going to know quickly that, yes, there's the wonderful golden pipes of Richie Giuliano that are constantly on, but they're also going to learn that you've turned into quite the foodie down there and letting people know what kind of food that you're traveling around and you're putting in and you're filling up your tummy with.
Yeah.
What kind of food? And listen, remember the audience around here. What kind of food do you really like about Tennessee and the area down there that Youngstown just doesn't have?
I think it's the barbecue. They've got great barbecue. I posted that picture I think you saw when I was in Montgomery called Dreamland, and they've got great pulled pork, just all the barbecue. Cornbread's big down here, which isn't big back home. Grits is really big down here, which you don't see a lot back home. And I really I've taken an appetite to the Southern food. I think I've gained a couple pounds while I've been down here. So it's been great, though. They've got good food. The one thing I miss about back home, and I've actually said this on a podcast that I've done here, and I've said it on air multiple times, the pizza is not good here. The pizza back home is the best. Youngstown pizza, nobody beats it. I believe in that wholeheartedly, and I miss the pizza for sure.
I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot because we have multiple sponsors, but I mean, talk about the pizza down there. Like, what's missing from the pizza? Is it the sauce? Is it the service? What is it about that pizza that just doesn't add up?
Well, of course it's the sauce, but I think honestly, a lot of the pizza places back in Youngstown are family owned and operated.
Yeah.
And it's that love of making the pizza that I miss. You go into a lot of these restaurants and, they're family owned and they've been there since the 1930s or 1940s. And it's just not that way around here. A lot of the pizza spots are chains or they just started opening up. So I really miss like the home cooking back home when it comes to the pies.
And that's interesting because I've seen you put away an entire pie by yourself, literally at the table. So for you to miss pizza, I'm sure when you come back and hopefully when you do come back, you'll have people just clamoring to give you pie all over the place. Speaking of which, my friend, so the season, obviously we're dead in the middle of it. We're in the heat of the races and obviously in the Southern League as well. What are the plans for you? I mean, this was I don't want to say a trial run because that's not what it was, but this was a seasonal position. What are the plans for you whenever the season comes to a close?
Yeah, it's still up in the air right now. I'm hoping to come back to Youngstown at the end of the season, hopefully do some work with YSN and get back to where I started. Yeah, that's really the update right now. Not much is in the works. I mean, obviously, when you talk about seasonal positions in the minor leagues, that also revolves around broadcasting positions. So, at the end of this year, you kind of regroup. And then, if Tennessee wants me back, that'd be great. Maybe there's another team that has a number one spot that I could fill in. But when it comes to broadcasting in minor league baseball, it's hard to find full-time positions unless you've been around a long time like my boss has and a couple other names in this league. But overall, at my age and where I'm at, I'm not going to get a full-time position until you get a number one spot. So I'm hoping to come back home, go back to Canfield, live there with my parents. I know my mom's nagging me to come back. She wants me back home. She misses the house. It's empty right now in Canfield because Josh is at Ohio State and I'm here. So, it's a house with 4 bedrooms and only one of them is filled right now. So she misses that. And I'm hoping to come back home. I do miss it. There's a lot about Youngstown that I miss. It's a gritty city. I love it down here because of the weather, but, home is always where the heart is, and that's Youngstown.
Have you had a chance to check out like the University of Tennessee or anything like that and that kind of life? What is it down there that really kind of engages you? Because I know you love it. I mean, you can hide it as much as you want and try to be the hometown player that you are. But, man, I know you love it down there.
Yeah, I do. I do love it down here. People are great. when you talk about Southern hospitality, that's a real thing. You know, the people are really nice around here. The food's pretty good, like I was talking about. And, you know, it's hard to beat the nature down here. Like everything's really green. The mountains are beautiful out in East Tennessee, especially when you move east of Knoxville and towards the Gatlinburg area I was talking about. So it's real scenic. It's beautiful. People are nice. And, you know, the campus is great. You know, it's a beautiful campus. It's got really, really strong brick buildings, which are, have you ever been we went to Notre Dame, you know how they're all like the same? It's kind of like the same down here. You know, when you're driving or walking by campus, you know, it's a University of Tennessee building because they all look the same. And the campus is real tight. You know, it's all in one circle, kind of like the Oval at Ohio State. And, you know, people down here, for some reason, that's all they talk about is the University of Tennessee. And they talk about football year round. I mean, your local radio stations and your TV stations, it doesn't matter what month it is. Football is a big talk. Like everybody down here is talking about what's Tennessee football going to do? Who are they going to sign NIL wise? Who's Alabama's quarterback going to be? Like it's a daily argument. That's all you hear about down here. And they truly love and care about college football more than anything I've ever seen. Like Ohio State's big back home.
Yeah.
Down here, it's a different animal. They live and die by Alabama or Tennessee or Florida.
Is it tough to compete with that? I mean, you guys still have to do your own, you know, guerrilla marketing, so to speak. And is it tough to compete with that and get people excited about Smokies baseball when you're always competing? Or is that just kind of the nature of the beast?
Yeah, I think it is tough, you know, for the Smokies to compete. But I think our promotional team, our marketing team has done a great job getting people in the seats. Right now, we're second in the Southern League in attendance, but we're still behind by 5 games at home. So we could be first at the end of the season. People love it around here. The ballpark's in a great spot. There's a lot of parking. There's a couple of things to do around. It's not far away from a lot of the tourist attractions, so we get a lot of the tourist people coming up. I know that the Rhodes were here from Salem. You know, they were by the ballpark. So, you know, there are some people from back home that have been here before. I know Steve Leslie, he's been here before. He was telling me about it. He might come down. So, yeah, it's a great ballpark. It's a great place to be. And we do battle with Tennessee baseball because their season is still in progress when we're in the first 2 months of the season. So Tennessee's been selling out every night. And, you know, those months we battle on the radio with them, trying to get radio time, and then along with the people that come to the ballpark and fill the seats. So after they're done, this place really opens up and we get great crowds every night.
I know that there's 3 people that miss you immensely in my house, and ZB and Sarah all said, hey, make sure you say hi to Uncle Richie. But the one question that constantly I had, and I wasn't going to ask you this before you went, how have you avoided, because it seems like everybody that goes down south somehow finds this Southern twang, and you've kept straight to your roots with your Northeast Ohio accent, so to speak, that I'm sure everybody looks at you like you got 3 heads. How have you not picked up a Southern drawl, man?
I know. Well, the good thing is I've only been here for 4 months, so I might pick it up sooner or later. But, you know, there's some sentences where I'm like, man, that sounded a little bit Southern. But, you know, overall, I try and keep my Northeastern Ohio accent because, you know, I'm on the air all the time. And my boss is from Alabama, actually, and he doesn't have a Southern accent. So, you know, being around him a lot, you don't pick it up. Like there's people around here, like in the office, that have a real Southern twang. And, you know, when you talk to them, they're like, you're not from around here, are you? I'm like, no, I'm from Ohio. But I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I haven't realized that yet. Maybe.
Can you give me your best impression of the Richie Giuliano call for a Southern twang if you picked it up over the next couple months?
I don't know. I guess it would be like, and here's the pitch. And that one is tattooed to left field. But it is out of here.
Keep your Northeast Ohio, man. I think that would send you backwards about 10 years. They'd be like, hey, there's a prison league open, young man. You can go announce that. Tattooed all over the fence. Good grief. How's the sweet tea down there?
Oh, it's great. It's great. Yeah. I've been trying a lot since I've been down here. I was drinking sweet tea before I left, and then once you get down here, it's really hot. Like it's so hot, and you need something sweet to get you through the day. And they have the best sweet tea down here. Like
that's all they do. That's all they drink.
Yeah, it is true too. They drink one thing that I picked up on is like if you call it cola,
Mhm.
like they'll ask like, "Oh, what do you want to drink?" And I'll be like, I have a Coke, and they'll be like, "Oh, what kind?" And I'm like, "What?" Because like, yeah, it's like really weird like down here. It's like I'll have like a Coca-Cola. They're like, "Oh, what kind?" And I'm like, "Coke." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Sometimes you say Coke and they're like, "Oh, okay, what kind?" "Oh, I'll have like Dr. Pepper." What? I was like, "What is going on down here?"
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, so you've
And
eaten a lot
everybody
of
calls
food.
it
Well, okay, so you've eaten a lot of food down there. I mean, and I'm not trying to say you're chubby or anything. But you said it, not me. But it's one of those things
yeah.
like, and I can't see it. I can only see your face. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it because you're perfectly proportioned. Doesn't look like you've changed. You're not starving, which I love. What is like you talk about the barbecue? What is the one thing that surprised you? Like from the food wise, it's like, okay, maybe you didn't like it up here, but it's good down there. Is there anything that stands out to you?
I would say the grits. Back home, I was like, "Oh, these are
Ugh.
awful. Like they're dry, and I'm like, these are terrible." But down here, they make them with like eggs. They put bacon in them.
Okay.
There's like corn in some of them, so like it's really good. Like you get a full meal of like grits down here, and then there's like another one that kind of surprised me was the biscuits. The
Oh
biscuits
yeah.
back I didn't like at all. Down here, the biscuits are legit. Like they make full biscuit sandwiches, which I put on my Twitter as well when I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had a biscuit sandwich with sausage, gravy, egg, bacon, and ham.
You're gonna
Oh,
force me to get you're gonna force me to get some kind of benefits here, man, when you come back, because you're gonna
yeah.
need you're gonna need to get checked out by a doctor.
I know it's not healthy, but it's great food.
For anybody that's looking, and we've talked about this, and now that you've got some experience in the real world, so to speak, I mean, for people that are looking, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give them for jumping into the sportscasting world, feet first, head first, whatever?
Yeah, I guess you have to learn to work hard. Like this business is not as easy as it looks. Day-to-day operations, this is a long day and you're not getting paid as much as you would like sometimes. But if you love it, you wouldn't rather be anywhere else in the world. Like I come to work every day. I'm happy. I'm excited to be here and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. So I think that sports broadcasting sometimes people look at it and say, "Oh, I just get to go on air and I get to talk for a living." That's not really the case. There's a lot of outside work that goes into this to make it a great broadcast. And you could tell the difference between people that do hard work and they study the game and they do everything right. And then there's other people you're like, "Yeah, this guy just showed up and just started talking." And there's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't realize. And you really have to work hard in this industry if you want to get to the next level. That's one thing that I learned quickly, when I was working with YSN and when I was working with everybody in Youngstown is that, hey, if I want to be better than all my classmates, I got to outwork everybody. And if I want to get to the next level and be where I want to be in 10 years, then you got to work hard because this just doesn't come to you. Nobody's just going to knock on your door and say, "Hey, we've got an opportunity for you." You got to work hard and you got to go after it if you want that dream.
And I think one of the biggest things that people need to understand about you is how many notes of very similar that I started my career, how many notes of rejection you got, and you just kept pushing through and pushing through. Some people might think that you just got, the first time you sent out a tape, the first time you sent out anything, that you got this gig. That's not true.
No, not at all. Rejection's big in this business. I think I was denied 10, 12 times when I was sending out my application and my reels to a lot of teams. And some teams are nice about it. They tell you, "Hey, maybe you could have done this better. You don't have any minor league experience. That's why we didn't hire you." Some teams don't even send anything back to you. Like they just leave you in the dark, which can be frustrating. Like the process to get into the minor leagues and find jobs in this business is very difficult. But if you just persevere through it, you can't let it get to your head and you can't give up on it. That's one thing I've learned is that if I gave up on it, I wouldn't be here right now. And, I would still love what I'm doing back home, but, you wouldn't have the opportunity to, keep moving forward if you give up.
We're proud of you, buddy. And for the love of God, would you please give somebody your Twitter so that way they can start hammering you and not me?
Well, it's this name right here. I mean, in this box, that's my Twitter handle. So I'm pretty easy to find. I don't have some mysterious name like the Ghost Rider 58. It's just my name. So it's pretty easy to find me.
Richie, we're so proud of you, man. I can't tell you. I mean, selfishly, I'm excited for you to possibly come back and rejoin our team, but you'll always be there in spirit. I know that. Thank you so much for joining us today, updating everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Richie Biscuits Giuliano, once again. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, as always, to my good buddy Richie Giuliano for joining us. Loving the biscuits down in Tennessee, loving the food, loving the sweet tea, but he misses the pizza. He misses the pizza, which is something that we all get, I think, when we leave this area. The Youngstown pizza is second to none. It's second to none. Go ahead, try and find someplace. Maybe Italy. That might be the only place. That's an expensive pizza. That's an expensive pizza, but we're looking forward to it. Final notes before we get to our spark. If you'd like to advertise on YSN, and I know there's a lot of you out there because I've been getting so many inquiries, we're filling up for the fall, folks, and it's your time to shine because we've got over 9 million views on our website in 2023 alone. We've far surpassed what we've done last year of 8.1 million through the entire year of 2022. We're at 9 million. So if you want your brand to be seen, now is the time to do it. Head on over ysnlive.com/advertise and sign up. Just inquire. And we will literally, it'll be me talking to you, and we'll figure out the best bang for your buck and to make sure that you are seen everywhere you want to be here on YSN. Over 60 schools that will help you promote, and naturally you'll be helping them as well, making sure that their student athletes, their coaches, and their communities are seen by everybody here at YSN, because everything you do here is reciprocal, and we're able to hire more announcers. We don't want to hire more photographers. We got enough of those. I say that because our chief photog and belated birthday boy, number 66, Mr. Gary Leiniger, is sitting right to my right. We could pay him a little bit more too. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for advertising, supporting what we do here at YSN. And if you're an announcer, if you're a statistician, if you're a writer, if you just want to work in sports, there's not a whole lot of those jobs out there, but we got plenty for you. Make sure you're sending us a message. We want to get you to our YSN Academy coming up next Friday. And we got a couple more after that, but we want to get you lined up. Charles Marsh and his team is going to come in and take those awesome pictures of us, so that way we can promote our announcers and promote them at every age, whether they are 14 years old, Michael McKenzie, or whether they are above the golden age of 65, like our wonderful photographer here in Gary Leiniger. We want to make sure that if you've got a passion, if you've got a heartbeat for sports, especially here locally, that you are one of the players on our team. So make sure you see one of those billboards, you message us, and we'll get you signed up for the Academy. All right, it is time for the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Anything commercial, residential, industrial, anything that makes you go bzzzt. Make sure you go over to DickeyElectric.com, proud partner of your sports network. And it all comes down to this, folks. I know we talked about protests today. We talked about essentially Richie Giuliano had an awesome 20-minute interview. It all comes down to, for me, a lot of this is teaching the next generation, whether it's you are a young up-and-coming announcer like Richie, whether you are a coach, whether you are a parent, whether you are a business owner, whatever it may be, teaching that next generation that hard work pays off when you allow it to. Hard work continues to pay off, but just because you get turned down, just because you don't win, doesn't mean that it's the end of the road for you. It just means that you got to find another route. It means that you got to work a little bit harder, because the next time, maybe you do get that break. Maybe you do get that hard-earned promotion, that job title, whatever it may be, that win, that championship, whatever it may be, you've got to work hard to get it. So don't be dismayed. Don't be put off by the losses. Keep your eyes on the prize, just like Richie, and you will accomplish big things in your life as well. That's going to do it for our show. Tune in tomorrow. We got a good one for you here on the Power Hour. We will update you throughout the day with hopefully some great guests. And of course, yours truly right here on YSN. We'll see you tomorrow, 3 to 4, right here on your sports network. See you. Ysn thanks you for watching this presentation